I'm John-Henry Crawford, and this is Cello and Pauta. I started when I was 5 years old, and I started playing in my mom's Suzuki program. She runs a Suzuki program in Louisiana of about 150 students. It's the largest one in Louisiana, and that's where I got started. And at first, it was just kind of a hobby. But then when I was about 10 or 11, I saw a performance of one of the alums of the program, and he played Tchaikovsky Rococo Variations. And I had never heard the piece before. I'd never seen someone playing it, and I was just mesmerized by his performance and the piece, and just started really getting serious about the cello and practicing a lot. And fast forward a few years, when I was 15 years old, I was fortunate to be able to audition at the Curtis Institute, and I was very lucky to be accepted. And so when I was 16, I moved to Philadelphia and studied there for 5 years. And while I was there, I learned a tremendous amount. I studied with Peter Wiley and Carter Bray. And I was fortunate to perform with the Philadelphia Orchestra. And after graduating, I went and performed at the Louvre Auditorium in Paris. And since then, I've been competing in a lot of international competitions. And recently, last summer, I was very fortunate to win the Prieto competition in Mexico. And since then, I've been working on other things. But of course, with COVID and everything, it took things to a halt. So anyways, that's sort of a broad overview, but I've been fortunate to play some very exciting concerts with wonderful musicians, and hope to continue doing that in the future.
That's so awesome, because we know you by your Instagram account and all the work that you do like the last 3 years. That's yeah. So it's really awesome to see all your history, how you became the cellist that you are these days. So we have some questions for you.
Sure.
Some of that is about your journey, because it's really impressive what you have done. I think they're really relieved like right now after all of this. But okay, our first question will be made by Wallace.
Hello. I would like to know, when creating the 100-day challenge, did you start directly with 100 days, or did you have another smaller challenges? Because it can be quite a challenge to start with 100 days. So sometimes for some people. So
yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think it was interesting because I was actually not on Instagram until January 1st of 2018. And I heard about this thing called the 100-day practice challenge, and a lot of people were doing it. A lot of my friends seemed to be doing it. And I think Hilary Hahn started it, the violinist, and I've always been a fan of hers. And so it sort of started as like, okay, maybe I should try this too. But I was thinking about it for a long time. And then when I decided to do it, I thought, well, what if I made this a little bit more kind of wild or ridiculous? And so I added a 0 to make it 1,000 days, and it became the 1,000-day journey. So it was kind of like it was a little bit of a joke or a dare, but it ended up being something that was really transformative, and I'm glad I did it. But it was kind of like I felt being funny just to do 1,000 days, and I didn't know that I would actually go through with it. I thought I might do 100 and then maybe stop, but yeah. So it kind of just happened that way.
Yeah, that's so nice. And I think everyone would like to know this. Would you have any tips to stay motivated throughout this very long time?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's one of the most difficult things as a musician and just in life is consistency, right? Like, how do you stay with something every day for a month, a year, 2 years, longer? And I think, we have to make it a habit, right? We have to be able to make it something that becomes automatic. But to do that, it takes a lot of work. And for me, I can't do it without some kind of system. So, like, for example, So one way of doing it is like having a calendar and every day putting an X, something visual to help you, like an aid that holds you accountable. Another thing is having another person saying, I'm going to do this thing. If I don't do it, then I'm going to give you $100, or you have to burn $100, or like do something that makes you averse to losing that, the bet, or so to speak. But I use that as kind of like a tool to help me get started. But after maybe a few months of doing that, of using that tool or device or system to help me keep going, it became automatic. So I didn't have to think about it anymore. And, when I was in the hundreds of days, it was like there was no choice. It just had to happen, right? And so I think that's the best advice I would give, is find some kind of system or accountability to hold yourself to, so that whether you like it or not, you have to stick with it. Yeah. Because willpower, like we think we have the willpower and motivation to do something. The willpower and motivation are very elusive. Like you can't count on it every day. You can't count on waking up and feeling motivated every day. You have to just do it, and then the motivation follows. Yeah.
And on that note, I have a related question. I know that this 1,000 days follow you with your schedule, like the repertoire that you had to do in competitions, like some months ago or something like that. But your plans to record this 1,000 days were like one video per day, or there are some days that require more than one to be safe for the follow days. So how you plan to do that, and how that works for you?
Yeah. So for me, when I first started, the only requirement was that I had to record something every day, and it had to either be my practice or performance or maybe a rehearsal. And I didn't say like it has to be, I didn't say to myself that, it has to be perfect or I have to make it a performance ready. But sometimes I would just actually practice in front of the camera and stop and fix things. But as far as like doing multiple days and then getting like a collection so that I have like, spare days or something. Some people said, oh, you should do that to get like ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. But to me, it was such a chore to do it every day that to do more than one, I had no interest in. Because the process, it took me like at least an hour most days, like to set up the camera, to film, to edit, and then to upload and all that stuff. So, and also it would kind of defeat the purpose of making it a learning experience. And so each day showing some kind of goal that I had, like I want to have these 3 lines and make them as good as I can. And that was the goal. And then I would film it at the end of the day. So for me, it was more about setting a daily goal, saying, this passage I'm going to have ready for today, that passage I'm going to have ready for tomorrow. And so I would plan several days ahead, just because I had to. But I would record, one a day.
And there was some point in the middle of this journey that you got afraid of being judged by someone, or I don't know, there are some recording or some video that affects negatively your career or something like that?
You're saying, was there one that I made?
Yeah, there was some point of all of these days that you got like afraid to be judged in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that, I mean, I wasn't always a fan of like putting out my performances online. And before I started this thing, like the journey, I was very hesitant to put things on YouTube and stuff. And I would only have like a few videos, things that I was really proud of. So to put a new video out every day, it was a challenge because we're obviously afraid of judgment, right? And we're afraid of being criticized and of people judging our playing. And I think classical music, because there's so much involved in the details and interpretation, like You know, you could play every note of the Dvorak concerto perfectly, but someone might completely disagree with your interpretation. So it's impossible to please everyone. And so for that reason, yeah, it was scary sometimes to put out videos, especially of things that I knew people had very strong opinions about. But that faded pretty quickly after, you know, a few weeks and months of doing it. And I think I became more desensitized to that.
And all this journey, I say journey because I think there was a journey, like 1,000 days of practice, like a lot. And how do you feel about yourself and as a cellist before and after that? Like there is something that changed, because obviously your organization must be increasing a new level, but in a cellist way, there was something that you say, okay, now I'm totally new cellist because of that.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. I would say, I mean, the biggest differences that I noticed were, you know, we were talking about consistency, being able to get things, being able to get pieces to a level that I liked faster than I was able to before. So, you know, if I had a concert in 2 weeks and I started practicing a piece again that was for the concert, it would take me the full 2 weeks to feel really ready with it. But at the end of this journey, you know, maybe now that's 1 week for certain pieces. Like it might take half the time for me to feel really secure with it. But in general, it's really hard to describe exactly how it shapes my playing. I think because it doesn't just improve one element of your playing. Like it doesn't just help your bow arm or just help your left hand or just help your musicality or your vibrato. It helps everything, right? And so it feels like it helped me mature as a musician and as a cellist all around. You know, so it was a very global improvement and not just like one element. Yeah.
It's really funny because it was like 3 years and Instagram changed a lot in these 3 years, like the algorithms and everything else. And how do you see now, like what is Instagram right now for you? Because when you started, it was like there was a few number of cellists that was doing something like that, and now basically everyone tried at least once to do like 7 days of practice, something like that. So how for you, what you can see of the difference on the Instagram, like before, in the beginning of this journey and right now?
Yeah. That sorry, I'm just trying to fix the screen here.
That's okay.
Yeah, for me, yeah, when I first started, obviously it was more of like it was like a new frontier, you know, like exploring a new kind of place for me. Because I also didn't spend much time on Instagram. I was on it like maybe 5 years ago for like a few months, and then I got off of it because I just wasn't super into it. But I think the biggest change is like the amount of people doing this kind of stuff. You know, like I look and see there now, like, you know, several different people doing the 1,000-day challenge on cello or on another instrument, maybe like on saxophone or I don't know. But it's huge, like hugely saturated now, Instagram, with all sorts of videos, practice videos, performance videos. And I think just the quantity of people doing it has increased tremendously. But I don't feel that like the culture changed. People were very supportive when I started. And at the end, people were just as supportive or more. And so, you know, I think it's not something to be feared if anyone's kind of hesitant about doing something like that. But I think also one of the very lucky things is with all of these great musicians on, you know, on social media and stuff, you can get inspired every day. And there's so much inspiration and ideas and things to try and lessons to be learned just from watching your colleagues and watching other great musicians, you know, practicing or performing. So I think it's a really positive thing overall.
What is your structure for the recordings? Because I mean, many people want to have better image and sound quality to make a good impression. So could you recommend some kind of basic structure or care to record these videos?
Do you mean like what types of gear, or like what types of format of the video? Like,
I mean gear. What is the camera that you use, or something like that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is I think it obviously can make a difference having a better camera or a better microphone, and I encourage anyone to use them if they can. But one of the interesting things I noticed early on is that I would use a camera. I would borrow some cameras that my friends had to just try them out and see. And I was experimenting with Sony or Panasonic or Canon, and I spent 1 week doing Sony, and then another week trying Panasonic, and then another week trying Canon cameras. And then after that, I put a video on my iPhone. I took a video that I made on my iPhone, and it did better than all of the others. So I think it helps. It can help, but it's not totally necessary to have like a special camera. And sometimes people like the sort of raw format of having an iPhone. But if someone's interested in having a better image and whatnot, I think it's really hard to go wrong nowadays. Canon has a lot of really great cameras in the lower end, like the DSLRs. Sony has I think the A6400 series, A6500s. Those have beautiful images. And so with Instagram, I think at a certain point, once you're using one of those kinds of cameras, because of the compression that Instagram does, it's not going to make a big difference whether you have like the best Canon camera or a pretty good Canon camera. You only notice it like in pictures and photography and stuff. So, but microphones, I used a Blue Yeti, which you can plug into your laptop, and it's really easy to use. So that's a great mic. And then I also used it's called a Rode Video Micro, and it's pretty affordable. Like, it's not super expensive, and I use that for a lot of my videos, like hundreds of videos. So that's a good one. Yeah.
And in the middle of all of that, I must say that there are some videos that was so special for me. Like, I think in the final phase, like Shostakovich, when we started recording the orchestra parts and cellos, I think it was so awesome, because at the same time we were trying to make another video, another of the 1,000 videos, but at the same time, I think it was something really special, like musically special, because it had a great sound quality, and I think the arrangement was amazing. So about that, there was some video that was really special for you, or to make or to record. Like, there was something that was really special for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's really tough. It's funny because I remember a lot of them, but I was also going through the other day, because I'm working on a big sort of compilation video where I put all of them in one, and I'm hoping to put that out maybe next week. But yeah, I think the ones that were really special for me were, like you were saying, the Shostakovich was really fun, because it was an arrangement of a lot of different instruments, and I was trying to imitate like the winds and the violins and whatnot. But some of my favorite ones were like, I enjoyed making the sort of cinematic ones, like with the rain and like the raindrops on the windows, and I would put like Prokofiev Sonata or Strauss Sonata, the slow movements to those. So those were a lot of fun for me, because I felt like I could sort of tell a visual story as well, because you can't film and play the cello at the same time. So it's nice to be able to move the camera some. But those were fun for me creatively, because I like the aspect of like filming and stuff.
And I must say that, sorry if I just talk about this 1,000 days, but I think that was something really amazing in meaning of, it's a once in a lifetime experience. I can imagine. I don't know if you are planning to do that again, but I mean,
I don't know.
yeah, but I mean, I think that was something that really inspiring for us, because I must say that, like myself, I saw your videos like every day in the past 3 years. So it's really amazing.
Well, I really appreciate that. I really do. And it's nice to know that people like enjoyed the work. I think I wrote in the last post, I said something like, it feels strange doing this every day sometimes, because I don't know if people are enjoying it or if they're annoyed by it. Like, oh, here's another video. Okay. But it's really gratifying to hear that you enjoyed it and that it was helpful and inspiring. So I'm thankful for your watching it. And it certainly was something that I would think really hard about doing it again, because it was so much stress involved, but I have no regrets. So, yeah.
Okay. And we have a last question. It's a little bit obvious, but you have some plans for now, like after all of this?
Yes. So I do have plans. I'm trying to sort of take it slowly because, with this, I wanted to take a nice break. It's been, I think, a month since I posted anything. But like I said, I have something I'm trying to post in like early next week if I can. And I hope to like get on a better schedule again, posting more regularly. So yeah, that's all I know for now, but I'm definitely trying to do more. And I think I'm probably going to try doing more YouTube things. Because one of the things that I missed or that I wished I could have done more of was long form videos. And with Instagram, you only get, a minute at most. I mean, you can do like IGTV, but I liked, the idea of playing longer pieces. And I also started to notice people would say, do you have a full performance of this clip? Or do you have like the whole piece? And so it's fun to hear like 30 seconds of something, but people, I think, also want to be able to listen everything through. So I think I'm trying to focus more on YouTube going forward.
That's so amazing to hear. I think that everyone's really looking forward to see that. Really.
Well, I'm grateful. Are you? I assume you're both cellists?
Yeah. Actually, we just graduated from the undergrad degree, and now, and that's life now. Let's try to go on. I'm making my master's degree in Manitoba with Mina. I think that I know her by Cello.
Oh yeah. Okay. Very nice. Very nice.
And we're trying to work on that. But I think that, like, talking to you right now is really special for us because we truly believe that social media has a great role on classical world right now.
Yeah.
I think that, and in Brazil it's really strange, but because of this language barrier that we have, it's really hard to get new information really quickly. So, for example, when you have some kind of competition like the one that you won some months ago, in Brazil, almost no one talks about that because it's all in English, and that's not something really common to students, like to know English in a certain level that they can see some news and stuff like that. So I think that our main objective of this project, Cello in Pauta, is to be able to bring like amazing cellists like you to this Portuguese world because we subtitled these videos and everything else. So I think, that's what we are doing right now.
Well, I applaud you. That's great work. And growing up in Louisiana, I didn't always. I mean, at a certain point, I needed further instruction, and it wasn't like a place, like a big city that had a bunch of performances always going on. We had a great symphony, and we had the Suzuki School, but I would go to Dallas for lessons. I would drive. My parents would drive me to Dallas to take lessons. So it's great now that we have people like you doing this kind of stuff, so that there's all this info for young cellists trying to, do better. So kudos. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's really amazing to hear that from you, really.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's it. And I don't know if you have something else to say to Brazil, but I think that was an amazing conversation for us, really.
Oh, well, all I have to say is obrigado.
Oh, that was great. So
I was in Brazil once for a performance in Sao Paulo.
Really? I didn't know that.
It was in 2012, and our school, the Curtis Institute, did a South American tour, and we went to Costa Rica, Brazil, and Mexico. And Sao Paulo is one of the more fun places I remember, and we went to like one of the churrascaria, like one of the steakhouses. Churrascaria. And we played in this huge auditorium. I forget what it was called, but like
Sala São Paulo.
Maybe that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's our main hall in São Paulo.
Okay. Yeah, it was like for some Mozarteum festival, I think. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I have great memories of Brazil. So
hope to see you soon here. Maybe.
Likewise. It'd be great.